I haven't seen that proof. Can you explain it to us? Have the beheadings been proven?
Yes, they have been proven. You can go on, you know, if you speak to the IDF spokesman, I'm not a spokesman for the IDF, but they will show you the evidence if you ask for it for those terrible crimes.
1 week into the war, your army spokesperson Daniel Hagari showed the world a virtual 3D model of an alleged Hamas command and control center which stretched several stories beneath the largest medical facility in Gaza, the Shifa hospital, which you know very well of. Why haven't you shown any proof of such a command center?
Again, Yama, this really line of questioning really shocks us here in Israel, because we've shown the world media, many journalists have been taken to those tunnels. We've seen those bulletproof doors, we've seen the cells, terror dungeon
specifically with
network.
Shifa Hospital, what you've shown the world are abandoned tunnels and shafts and weapons your forces claim were found inside the hospital. That does not prove that Hamas had a 3-story underground command and control center under the Shifa, a claim Israel has used to justify the attacks on hospitals all over the Gaza Strip.
I'm quite disappointed at this line of questioning, and it's not just from you, because we face this unreasonable burden of proof of the horrors of Hamas strategies. We've shown you tunnels.
Hamas has never denied they had tunnels under Gaza. That's an open secret. But you're claiming that they had a command center under the biggest hospital in Gaza. You use that as an argument to lay that hospital in ruins, and that's why it's a question the international press has to ask you. Where is this command center under the Shifa hospital?
Asking questions is, of course, the right thing to do for any journalist. But we have produced evidence of terror tunnels underneath the hospital. I apologize, Yama, if it's not enough for you. I apologize for the fact that we found RPGs in an intensive care unit. I apologize for the fact that we were fired on from the maternity ward. And I can tell you one thing, it wasn't the midwives that were firing at us. The evidence is clearly there. Journalists have been taken there. There is a terror tunnel network twice the size of the London Underground.
You've said it time and again. You find the line of questioning regarding the attacks on the hospitals and questioning these tunnels offensive.
I don't find it offensive. I find it ridiculous, to be
ridiculous.
You know,
then
for an intelligent person like you, Yama, it's ridiculous. What else do you need to see? You've seen videos.
Listen,
Hamas admit it. We're fired from there. The terrorists are there. We killed 200 there. The doctors, we move the doctors and the patients out of the way. You know, I don't know. It's a ridiculous line of questioning. I'm not shocked by it. I find it ridiculous.
But why don't you open Gaza for international press who can freely move around and check these tunnels for themselves? Because what you've done until now in this war, you've sealed the borders. No journalists, independent journalists, are allowed in to Gaza by your forces and by Egypt. The journalists you're talking about who are allowed in are handpicked by the IDF. They go on so-called embeds, where the IDF forces decide where they go, where they move, where they film, and who they talk to. That's hardly the standard of free press.
So, Yama, we have taken in many journalists, critical journalists, critical journalists as well. We have taken in many journalists on the point.
Guided tours,
right.
Mr. Mencer, that's different. That's not how free press should operate. We should have the ability, the possibility to move around freely to check and verify things for ourselves. That's our job, especially in a war. So you're not allowing us to do our job.
Yama, you've put this accusation to me. Let me give you Israeli government response.
It's not an accusation, it's a fact. You do not allow independent journalists access to the Gaza Strip.
You've put these points to me. Allow me to reply. Number one, this is a war zone, an active war zone, not a normal war zone, not like in other countries in the past. This is perhaps an unprecedented war zone in human history. Where
so is Ukraine and Russia,
where they
are
fighting,
allowed all the way
Hamas,
to the front
allow
line.
me to reply. You've asked me a question. Please do me the courtesy of allowing me to reply. So it's an active war zone. We have hostages in that in Gaza. We know there are still 133 of our people. Unfortunately, 36 of them have been killed. We know that our hostages are there as well. We fear for their presence as well. And we know that our armed forces would be jeopardized. They would be jeopardized, and we will always put the lives of our armed forces ahead of any sort of journalists wanting to go in.
Your critics say that you're denying access to journalists who can operate independently inside Gaza because you don't want the world to see what you're doing inside Gaza. How do you respond to that?
So the news, practically, let's talk about practically rather than your personal hurt feelings. Practically, the news is getting out of Gaza. There are many Palestinian journalists reporting from Gaza, which is their absolute right to tell you what they're...
100 of them have also been killed in this war.
And we also
unprecedented number.
And we also know, Yama, that many of these journalists call themselves journalists, but being active Hamas operatives.
And you presented proof of this claim?
Yes, we have. We have presented proof to the world's media of Al Jazeera's, the head of Al Jazeera, his children, unfortunately, who we had to target, were Hamas operatives. So let's not paint this as some sort of pure, Norwegian type environment.
Recently, an independent inquiry concluded that Israel has not produced a shred of evidence backing up their claim. Since January, your government has been claiming that UNRWA supports Hamas, that a number of UNRWA employees took active part in the October 7th attacks. If you make that claim, why don't you present the evidence to this independent inquiry?
So, Yama, just today at a press conference at 3:30, I presented just that evidence.
Why didn't you give it to the UN investigators?
That's precisely what we did. We
when
gave
they
them,
concluded?
When they, and if you ask...
But they've been asking for evidence for
yes,
weeks.
So that is another slur, a long list of many slurs against this country. We cooperated wholeheartedly with this investigation, but unfortunately it is a whitewash. This investigation, unfortunately, hasn't been independent and is another proof point of why this organization, UNRWA, cannot be reformed.
The international community is not buying what Israeli government is saying. Most of the donor countries which cut aid to UNRWA based on the claims you made against them that they took part in the Hamas attack on October 7th, most of them have reinstated the aid. Even the Germans, even they decided this week that they would reinstate the aid going to UNRWA. So nobody seemed to believe your proof.
So that's something that we are upset about. I'll be frank with you. The Israeli government has produced multiple evidence of the widespread hand-in-hand relationship between UNRWA and Hamas. You know, there was a Hamas server farm right underneath UNRWA's headquarters. I mean, it's almost farcical to believe there isn't a connection. It wasn't a few bad apples. This was a whole rotten orchard.
Internationally, it's seen as Israel has a lot of trust issues. Israel claims, like you've said, 13,000 Hamas operatives have been killed. Hospitals have been used as Hamas controlling command bases. UN aid workers, UNRWA workers took part in terror attacks. Why should the world believe your side of the story when you keep pushing unfounded claims?
Yama, we have produced all the evidence that you've talked about, but unfortunately it's never enough. It's never enough for people that do not wish to see the truth or believe the truth because they have some sort of vested interest, or they believe intrinsically that Israel is in some way guilty.
Almost 7 months into the war, nobody seems to understand what Israel's post-war plan for Gaza is. What will happen to Gaza after you're done with the war?
So once Hamas have been removed politically and militarily, our Gaza needs to be rebuilt. A better future, a more hopeful future needs to be allowed for their people. We need to do the same thing which happened in Germany at 1945, where the Allies magnanimously rebuilt Germany, which was destroyed by the Allies, and more importantly, de-radicalized it. They de-radicalized it.
You mentioned the Allies during the Second World War.
Yeah.
Is Israel going to rebuild Gaza because you bombed the place.
So, unfortunately, this is not a war that we wanted or a war that we asked for.
Nor did the
But
Allies
Hamas-
ask for that war,
Right.
but they helped rebuild Germany. So my question is, the World
Verify
Bank
that, did you say
estimates
so?
that your bombing has caused damages in Gaza to the tune of $18.2 billion. And my question is, will Israel pay for the reconstruction?
Nothing would make Israel happier. Israelis, I think to a person outside of this building, nothing would make Israel happier to have peaceful neighbors in Gaza, to have a Gaza which is prosperous, to have a Gaza which is allows for a better future for its children, a Gaza which is de-radicalized and is not constantly every 18 months waging war against us or firing rockets at us.
Mr. Mencer, you've made that point time and again during the interview. I had a very specific
Peace
question.
is important to us, Yama,
Yes,
okay?
but so is
It's
the
part of
reconstruction
symbol.
of Gaza.
It's part of the
2.4
symbol.
million people who have lost their homes. I'm asking you, Israel bombed Gaza. Will you take the bill for the reconstruction?
So I don't have an answer to that question because I don't know the official answer and I don't want to give you
So
an
who should
incorrect
pay
answer.
for the reconstruction of Gaza?
But
Who should
Gaza
pay for it?
should be rebuilt. We have in the past used our expertise, to rebuild Gaza in the past.
People listening to your answer, sir, would think that, okay, Israel is not committing to picking up the bill for the reconstruction of Gaza. Why should the international community pay for the destruction Israel caused in Gaza?
So once again, Yama, I don't have an answer to that question and I don't want to make a commitment here on Norwegian TV. Much as it's an important channel, I can't give you a commitment to that answer because I simply don't know.
You've said time and again that your war is not against the Palestinian people. Your war is against Hamas. So if you rebuild their houses, wouldn't that be a very good gesture on the road to coexistence?
So Yama, this is the fourth time I think you've asked me this question, and I will give you the same answer. I'm happy to get an official response to that, but I cannot give a commitment to you this evening.
How does the Israeli government see the way forward?
So the Prime Minister has made clear within weeks this conflict could be over, which is why the Prime Minister said to President Biden, and he was quoting Winston Churchill, speaking to the Americans, a different American president, he said, give us the tools to finish the job. We're almost there. We will destroy, we'll obliterate this organization, and we want to get back to peace, to coexistence, to allowing Gazans and Israelis to have a better future.